I have so many interesting news for you today. Putin declared a trusting relationship with Trump and eager to meet. Analysts believe that there are four realistic options for how the Russian war against Ukraine could end. And in the Russian swamps, propagandists broke down and began to praise the Ukrainian military. Last week, Putin was all about spreading the love for Trump, calling their bond trustworthy, and also casually suggesting they should meet up quite a few times. And all week long, it felt like he was dropping hints left and right, practically begging Trump to give him a ring, maybe catch up over coffee somewhere. I mean, how could he show open interest, right? It's not like the great Tsar of Russia can just ask for a meetup with Trump, American leader. America, the very America, mind you, that the leader of the West, which Russia is at war with, according to Putin. You remember, right? But no. Putin casually mentions that Russia and the US administration have quite a few points of contact to iron out today's big issues, including, the war in Ukraine. He said, "We see the current president's statement about being ready to work together, and we are always open to that, probably based on today's realities," he said. "We should meet and calmly discuss all the areas of interest to both the US and Russia." He said this in the interview with a Russian propagandist last week. Putin also noted that his relationship with Trump weren't just, businesslike, but actually trustworthy. He even suggested that if the Republican had stayed in the White House for four years ago, this war might not have started. "I agree," he said, with him. If he had been president, this victory hadn't been stolen back then, that the crisis in Ukraine wouldn't have occurred. Despite the fact that during Trump's first term, if I'm not mistaken, he slapped Russia with the largest number of sanctions, Putin now believes, thanks to Trump's smart and pragmatic nature, we won't see a repeat of such measures because they won't benefit the US itself, he said. So it seems like Putin was doing his best to butter Trump up. And, oh, by the way, am I getting this right, guys? For Putin, the deaths of hundreds of thousands of his citizens are just some minor crisis that could have been avoided thanks to the mighty America. And Putin said, "Wow, is America?" And he is winning, of course, as he is repeating, because he couldn't possibly be fighting little weak Ukraine, which he thought he would conquer in 3 days, right? Imagine the embarrassment if his people thought he was losing to Ukraine, battling it out with Ukraine, and couldn't even win with the army of North Koreans to take over that damn Ukraine. And today, he told the same propagandists that European politicians will soon be flocking to Trump on their own. He said, "But I assure you, with Trump's character, his persistence, he will tidy things up pretty quickly, and all of them, you just watch, will soon be sitting pretty at their master's feet, wagging their tails."
Станут у ноги хозяина и будут нежно помахивать хвостиком.
Anyway, let me know in comments, what do you think Trump will propose to Putin when they finally speak about ending the war? And before I continue, I want to thank all of you who send coffees on Buy Me Coffee and become Patreon to this channel. Please do so. If you want more videos on the channel, you can also help this channel by subscribing to it and like this video, because it will definitely help Ukrainian content to be seen by more people. I suggest you also subscribe to my X page, where I post regular updates about the situation in Ukraine, and to my Instagram, where I show the daily life in Ukraine. The British publication The Times decided to play fortune teller with the fate of a whole war, giving us 4 possible endgame scenarios. They ruled out the unlikely scenarios of the sudden death of dictator Vladimir Putin or the unexpected success of a Ukrainian counteroffensive. It is noted that much depends on the new US President Donald Trump, of course. So, scenario 1, Ukraine's defeat. This nightmare scenario predicts that if US withdraws its support, Ukraine could break under pressure and suffer a military defeat, akin to a bad action movie plot twist. The ripple effects, well, worse than the US pulling out of Afghanistan. Imagine millions of Ukrainian refugees and thousands thrown into jails. Remember when NATO was proud of expanding with Finland and Sweden? Well, in this scenario, is Russia doing the expanding, and not in the fun way, with Kremlin tanks rolling up to the Polish border. Trump, recalling his own criticism of Biden's messy Afghan exit, would dread this catastrophic outcome, says The Times. Scenario 2, bad peace. Almost as gloomy as the first. This scenario suggests Ukraine might be forced to sign a bad peace deal if the US support dries up, leading to a country split in two and a puppet government in Kiev. Not exactly a winning situation for Ukraine or its Western allies, and no, this won't get Trump the Nobel Prize he's reportedly thinking of. Scenario 3, ceasefire. This would be a temporary band-aid aiming to transition into full peace deal and real war's end. But we've been down this road before. Remember Minsk 1 and Minsk 2? Those didn't exactly bring peace in Donbass and just set the stage for further conflict. Full-scale invasion. Secretary of State Marco Rubio pointed out that the White House task is to ensure the war doesn't reignite. It's clear that without strong and effective guarantees, a ceasefire might just freeze the conflict, ready to kick off again whenever Russia feels like doing it. And scenario 4, negotiated settlement. The best case scenario for Ukraine involves the US enforcing Ukraine's position so it can negotiate from a place of strength. This would lead to a deal ensuring Ukraine's sovereign and economically viable future with solid security guarantees to repel future Russian aggression. For this to happen, Trump would have to slap new sanctions on Russia and keep the aid flowing to Ukraine, especially if Russia plays dirty or tries to dodge the negotiations, Wrapping this up, guys, Ukraine keeps fighting every day for its freedom and existence, and securing robust security guarantees, particularly from the US, is crucial because, well, let's face it, without strong international support, US support, any peace would be as temporary as our hopes for a drama-free year. So, what do you think? What would be the most likely scenario right now? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's discuss it. Russia's ombudsman Tatiana Moskalkova suddenly changed her tune about Ukraine. She's been telling people not to see Ukrainians as the empire of evil because apparently the soldiers who entered the Kursk region were sharing what little they had with the locals. Another Russian war correspondent named Kots backed her up by saying that none of the Kursk residents who were evacuated to Belarus he interviewed talked about any atrocities committed by the Ukrainian armed forces. This didn't sit well back in Russia, though. Now, There are calls for Putin to fire Maskalkova for her love for Ukrainians. It seems her comments about not demonizing Ukraine and saying nice things about the Ukrainian military really upset many powerful people, well, so-called Russian elite. Some anonymous Kremlin officials said that Maskalkova is doing dangerous things. It looks like she's scared and started cozying up to the Americans and the Kiev regime. She's trying to show that we're all just people, suggesting that even the Ukrainian Nazis are just like us. She's implying that we should get along. And it seems that she's hinting even ready to talk about the Ukrainian crisis and wants to show a friendlier side, of this. Either way, it came off really bad, this guy said. He thinks he should be fired right away for showing too much kindness for Ukrainians and making unclear suggestions about negotiations. And talk about bad timing. Right after she said this, well, the next day, yesterday night, there was a terrible incident where Russian forces bombed a boarding school in Suja in the Kursk region, trapping around 95 Russian civilians under the rubble. The Ukrainian armed forces, who control the city currently, did everything they could to help people. The Ukrainian Air Force even stated officially that Russian tactical aviation was responsible for this attack. Sadly, this isn't new. Russian bombs hitting Russians has happened before, as you remember. And this time, it seems like it wasn't an accident. Most victims were older people who had hoped for a safe humanitarian passage out, but instead, they were bombed by Russia. Well, you remember this happened very often in 2022 and 2023 in Ukrainian territories where people were standing at railway stations waiting for evacuations train. Missiles were brutally launched at them. So many people died, children died. Then other time people stood in the line for bread or for food. Russians launched rockets on them as well. For Russia, it doesn't really matter whether they are Ukrainians or Russians in some distant border regions. As you can see, they still don't care about human lives. And now to your favorite rubrics. The heroes of Russia's military operation. The so-called elite of Russia over Chebarkul, Chelyabinsk region. They have put up a hero's portrait of Denis Sinitsyn, a guy who back in 2014 raped and killed a mother of two. Such a hero turned out to be in a high demand in the Ministry of Defense, so the killer was recruited from the colony into a special operation where he successfully died. That's it for today, and I want to thank all of you for supporting Ukraine, watching Ukrainian content. Please like this video, and if you really like it and you want more videos on the channel, you can support the channel's development on Patreon or buy me coffee. The empire will fall. See you soon, and Slava Ukraini!